Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will continue with Salesforce developer interview question and answer series. Today, we will discuss debugging and exceptional handling. So the main focus of today's videos is debugging and exceptional handling. It's a continuation video. Again, if you have not watched the previous videos of this series, then I strongly recommend you to watch those first. So let's get started. The very first question for today is question number 54 is what is debugging and how do we debug Apex? Okay, so from here we will be starting the debugging questions. This is also really important. Okay, especially see, I have explained in my last video of admin series wherein I have explained you more about the team setup, right? We have project teams, we have BAU teams and support teams, right? So sometimes BAU and support teams are one team and the project team is one team. Project teams are the one who are doing the new development, okay, for the new development and enhancement. And BAU teams sometimes do the small enhancements plus they support the production if they've got any issues, right? So as soon as you got an issue, you have to debug it, right? So here the question is, what is debugging? So the interviewer might ask you like, what is debugging? Have you done debugging? And how to debug Apex class. So let's see how we can do that. So debugging can be defined as a process of finding the root cause of a problem or a bug in code and fixing it, right? So you have been reported that there is a problem in so and so functionality and users are not able to move forward, right? You want to see it, right? So how do you see it, right? You replicate it and you try to see what is there in the code. You have seen so many lines of code has been written, then you have to debug it. Okay, so how do you debug? We'll see that. So Salesforce provide debug logs. So Salesforce has debug logs. Salesforce provide debug logs to debug Apex. We can also access debug logs from the developer console as well. Okay, so there are two ways we can see the debug logs. One is from the debug logs as well as another from the developer console. Okay, as and when you start working on it, right, you become the pro in Apex development, then you'll know from where all you can see the debug logs. But I'll show you how exactly you have to search for the debug logs. Can you explain the steps to debug the code in Apex, right? So now you've explaining what is debugging. Now he'll ask you, what are the steps? How do you debug it, right? Especially these questions will be asked if you are, being hired for a support project, okay, or a project or BAU where you will be in the BAU teams, okay. So this will be asked compulsory, okay. So the steps to enable this debug logs is step one is enable the debug log. How do we do that? To enable the debug logs, go to setup and quick find and find the debug logs. Okay, as soon as they find the debug logs, click new, select the user from for which you want to enable the debug logs. Okay, and then you have to enter the start date and then you have to enter the expiration date and then you have to enter the debug level, and then second step is run the functionality for which you want to debug. And then you want to go back to the debug logs from the setup and open the debug logs for that particular user. Okay, so I know you might have not understood because this steps. So I'll go back again. Okay, so step one, as soon as someone has reported you that okay, there is an issue in this functionality, very first thing what you have to do, you have to go and enable the debug logs for that particular user. Okay, normally what happens is as an administrator you will not be able to replicate. You will be getting this error only for that particular user, but not as an administrator, because administrator might have so many permissions, right? He might not face some errors and the users will be facing because they have limited access. Maybe they might not have access to a particular field wherein our code wants to insert or update the data or whatnot, whatever it can be, right? So what you have to do, very first thing, you have to go and set up the debug logs for that particular user. Okay, I'm stressing many times, you have to enable the debug logs for that user. I will show you the screenshot. So you have to enable the debug logs for that particular user. So there you have to select the user I said, right, for which you want to enable the debug logs, and then enter the start date from when you have to have debug logs to be logged, and then expiration date for till what time you have to expire. I think you can select only 24 hours window for a debug log, and then debug level. If you want to see the finest detail of each debug log, then you can select this one. Okay, as soon as you go and start creating this logs, then you will understand what is the debug level as well. Okay, and then what you do is, as a user, okay, run that functionality. For example, that user is getting an error when he is saving the account. Okay, so first enable the debug log for that user, and then log in as that user, and then run that functionality, okay, for which you are getting a problem, for you want to do, like, as that user, log in as that user and save that account record, because account record is where he's getting the problem, right? And then you will also see that error, because that user is seeing that error, means you have logged in as that user, and you will also see that user error while saving the account, right? Then go back again to the debug logs and open the debug log file. Okay, this will generate the debug logs, and here you have to go back and open the debug log file and analyze the debug log. Okay, this requires some experience you will not get in a day or two, right? Let me first show you how the screen looks, and then I'll explain you a little bit more. Right, the step 4 is to analyze the debug logs to find the issue, right? And this is how I said, right, you have to go to the debug logs, right? So here I have created the debug logs, like, here the log type, and then start date and end date, debug level, and all those things I have defined in SFDC developer console what should be the level, is it, whether it's the finer or finest details of each and everything that I have mentioned. Okay, so yeah, you open it and explore it, you will come to know. After I've run my functionality, then I will see this debug log. So you can view the debug log, or you can download the debug log, or what not you can do. Okay, so like this, you select the user. You can even select the class also, if you want to run the debug logs for that particular class every time the person is if anyone is running that. Okay, but I suggest go with the user, so that you'll not have a lot of debug logs in your queue. Okay, then select the person for whom you want to run the debug logs, and then start date and end date, and then the level. Okay, next question is, what does the debug log file contains, or what information does the debug log provide? Okay, so debug log provides the information about the following. First one, it provides the information about the database changes. It provides the information about the HTTP callouts. It provides the information about the Apex errors, a resource used by Apex, and then it also provides the information about the workflow rules, assignment rules, process approval processes, validation rules, process builders, and flows. Okay, I have not seen a lot of information for process builders and flows, but you still find something for this as well. Okay, so for process builders also, it is given as flows, so be careful. Okay, for process builder is not given as process builder in the debug logs, it is also given as flows. Okay, but you will find the name, so with the name you can understand, okay, this is for so and so flow. Note, the debug logs does not include information from action triggered by time dependent or time based flows or time based process builders, right? So if you remember that we have also workflows, time dependent workflows, and I think we also have process builder for time dependent. So for that, it won't be displayed over here in the debug logs. Okay, so sample debug logs, see, this is just the simplest one I'm showing you. Okay, you might have the complex as well. Okay, so here we don't have much thing, and even I don't have a lot of space here to show you the biggest one, so I could get the simplest one for you. Right here it is giving me each time and seconds and milliseconds, what happened. Unit code started executing anonymous Apex, and then heap allocated, statement executed, heap allocated, limit storage for NS, whatnot, right? So yeah, this is a sample because I have not done anything. Yeah, here you can see anonymous window has written me system.debug. Okay, hello world. So this has been, so all system.debugs will be there in the debug logs. Okay, One quick hint, I will not hint, I will give you a good tip over here. If you want, if you are getting the uh, governor limits errors, right? So first, every debug log ends with this, okay? Ends with this. Every debug log, okay? So here, our debug log will tell me from how many SOQL queries. From 100 SOQL queries, I have utilized only 0 queries, okay? 50,000 query rows, I have utilized only 0, okay? So here you will get the limit, how much your class have been, your transaction has been utilized so far, okay? This is also a good tip where, you know, you can go and see if it is 100 and you have already reached 80, then soon you are going to hit the limit, right? So if you want, you can optimize the code as well, okay? So this is a tip actually. And for developer console, debug logs in the developer console, you can even go to open the developer console. We have multiple tabs at the bottom. I'm sure you know this. And if you click on the logs, then you will see the debug logs over here. If you click this one, it will open the debug log. I think you can download as well the debug log from here as well. So there are multiple ways you can see the debug logs. Cool. Next question, why do we use system.debug? Okay. Debug logs give us the basic information or some information which debug log is supposed to do. But if I want to get some specific information, right, then what I have to do? So system.debug is used to print information of a specific line of code in Apex or triggers. Okay. So apart from the general debug information, debug logs contains the information from system.debug statements, right? So try to have as many system.debug statement in your code. I would suggest, because what happens, um, see, as part of the best practices, right? Your lead will go and and try to remove and give you a comment in your code review saying that you have written a lot of debug logs. Yeah, I suggest not to write too many debug logs, but I suggest wherever possible, important areas, try to write debug logs in your classes, right? Why? Because when you get an issue in production, you will not get an opportunity to edit that class. Okay. You cannot edit the class in production to write system.debug and see what is happening with this list. Okay. Whether this list is filling me or not, why my list is coming null and all those things, right? So don't write debug log for each line, but at least for a method, at least for method, one debug log, one system.debug should be there. I mean, in my opinion, right? So yeah, I know that seniors, your leads will go ahead and ask you to remove the debug log, saying that it is not a best practice, but having one debug logs will save you, at the time of production support. So example, if you want to see if a particular list or set is updated with the right values after the logic is processed, then we write system.debug to see that list, right? It doesn't show the complete information, right? Whatever we want. But sometimes I want to see, okay, the problem is happening because of this list, ACC list. This is just an example, right? And then in the debug log, I want to see whether this list is getting filled after some logic is being compiled or not, or some logic is being executed or not. I want to see, right? How can I see that? I can see that using system.debug, right? So yeah, for example, I'm getting update, I'm getting an error on update this ACC list, right? So before that, I want to see whether what is there in ACC list, whether my logic is populating some values in this ACC list or not, right? For that, I need system.debug, right? So this will help you to print, more information on the debug logs. Cool. Next question is, what is an exception and what happens when an exception occurs, right? So exception is an error. Everyone knows this is an error is nothing but an exception or an event that disrupts the normal flow of the code execution, right? And when an exception occurs, code execution halt. Simply, if anything happens, if any problems comes in the code, then simply it will halt the system, right? If you do not handle the exception, your users will get some nasty, messages, very lengthy messages, which even that business user doesn't understand, right? So yeah, you should be really careful over here. Next question is, what are exception statements? Okay, let's see that. So there are two exception statements: throw statement used to generate exceptions. I can generate exception, whenever I want to, and then try catch and finally used to gracefully recover from an exception. There are exceptions which I want to throw deliberately, okay, and then for example, I user is adding some products into the cart, right? And then the cart user has added the product into the cart, but there is no uh, by the time he added, then he was waiting that till that time, my inventory that product is not available, okay. So when he is trying to submit without inventory, so I will check that time, okay. If inventory is not there, then that time I want to throw some deliberate errors, right? So right that time I can throw this using the throw statement, okay. We can throw the errors or something similar where we want to deliberately throw some error. That time I use the throw statement, right? But if I want to catch the errors, system errors, we are getting the errors because we have done something wrong in the code, right? So that time we can gracefully recover from that exception using try catch and finally, right? Again, if you don't use try catch, so be a good programmer, right? Be a good developer. Try to write try catch finally for each and every method, okay. Most of the method you should not most all of the method you should write try catch finally. And one of the best thing as a good developer, don't keep the catch block empty, right? You should do something. So some people, what they do is they catch they catch they write the try catch, but they don't write anything in the catch block. They keep the catch block empty. Then no one will know. I mean, even it doesn't show the error, and no one knows that what is happening, right? Even you go and open the debug logs, you will not have anything because you have not taken any action, right, for the catch block. So that is also really very important, okay. So let's see how we write try catch statements. I'm giving only the try catch statement. Throw I will explain you a little bit later. So try, here I want to write some code wherein I want to, if there is any error in this, if there is any problem in this block of code, then I want to catch this one, right? Here I can use catch dml.exception. I can even catch normal exception also. Just remove dml, just use exception e. That is a generic exception, right? So you can write the message. That's what I'm saying, right? Don't keep this catch block empty. You should do something. Either you should write system.debug, or maybe in some good process, people even log this catch in a database table. Maybe they will create a custom object called maybe logs or something like errors or something, and then they will have they will insert the errors into that table, which is very easy, which is very handy for the production support guys. As soon as someone complains you about the error, then what you can do, simply go and look into the table and see what is there. You can have as much details as you want in that table, who got this error, what time they got it error, which class they were in at the time they got that error, and what method they were trying to get that error. All those things can be, error message also can be inserted, right? But the bare minimum what you can do is you can write system.debug at least, okay. So don't just and here also the same thing, but here the difference here, what I'm trying to explain with these two different screenshot is, here see this message, this does not execute since insert cause an exception. So what happens is, as soon as problem occurs, directly the control will go to the catch block, okay. In this case I'm getting error over here, and my control is directly going to the catch block. That is the reason this is not getting executed, because as soon as I get error, directly my control goes to the catch block. In this case, here I've written insert, here I got an error, right? Directly it has gone to the catch block, but after catch block ends, I have written something over here. So this will get executed because this is after my catch block, okay? So this get executed. The only thing I want to explain to you over here, I'm having 10 lines of code and I got an error in the third line. Don't expect that rest of the line of codes will get executed, right? So all of them will directly the control goes to catch and they will not be executed. Okay, cool. I think lots of knowledge in this video, and which is very important actually. Okay, as for a real time, and to for doing Excel in your interviews. These are the topics you should impress your interviewer. Next question, name a few built-in exception types. Okay, I've just explained in my previous question that I have used DML exception, right? So, and you can use generic exception also. Apart from DML exception, what are the other built-in exception types we have? Okay, let's go ahead and see. So we have DML exception, we have list exception, we have null pointer exception, and we have query exception. We have uh, S object exception. Okay, so let me spend some time and explain to you about each of this little bit so that you get an idea. I don't want to stretch the video, but this is important. So let me explain you a little bit. So DML exceptions, right? When what will happen in DML exception? So any problem with a DML statement, like such as an insert statement. Is missing a required field on the record. Like I'm inserting an account, but I'm not giving an account name itself, which is a required field, right? So then what is happening? A problem is happening at the insert, or a problem might be happening at the update or delete, right? So that time DML exception, happens. And then for the list exception, for example, if any a problem occur with the list, such as attempting to access an index that is out of bounds, right? So what you did is you think that you have added some values into the list and you're trying to access the list, but in reality you have not filled the list. Okay, the list is empty, but you're trying to access the list, right? So that time you get the list exception, right? And similarly, null pointer exception. When will happen this null pointer exception? Any problem with the dereferencing a null variable, then you will have this null pointer exception. So what does that mean? So the example, is let's suppose, for example, you have a string variable, okay, name s, okay, but we don't initialize a value to it. I've just declared string s, okay. Then if I declare in string s, then it is null, right? So then what I'm doing is I'm trying to check, if that string dot contains abc. My string is empty, but I'm checking what is there in that string. So it is having null value. That's the reason it gives null pointer exception. Okay, so and then another one is a query exception. So what happens in the query exception is any problem with the SOQL query, you will get this exception, right? Such as assigning a query that returns no record, right? I'm trying to run a query which is having no records or more than one record. For example, I have declared account A is equals to new account, means account A if I declare, which means it can store only one record. But my query is getting more than one record, right? So that time also you get a query exception. Okay, try all those things. Okay, go and refer to developer.salesforce.com. You will find everything, all the examples there. Okay, don't search things here and there. Okay, don't go with any of the either random sites. They might have created a while ago, but even that those websites now maybe not updated, right? Because someone might have created out of their hobby, but now they might be not continuing their hobby right now, right? So until and unless even if you go and see the blogs, if it is not updated recently, just don't refer to it, right? Refer to the real documents from Salesforce itself. Okay, I always do that. Even though you can refer the blogs, I'm not saying you don't refer it to get some idea, but go and refer for the latest and greatest things on Salesforce, in Salesforce documents. Okay, so we have done till query exception. The last part is S object exception. Okay, any problem with the S object record, such as attempting to change a field in an update statement that can only be changed during insert, right? So that will have S object exception impact. Okay, so these are the few common I would say built-in exception types we have. Next question is provide an example of handling generic exception as well as specific exceptions using built-in exception types, right? Now that we have seen built-in exceptions, I've also explained you about generic exception. Like, instead of writing DML exception, just write exception, which is nothing but a generic exception. So how to write the code, right? If your interviewer asks you, you can explain the code as well, right? So I've given you example of all those things. Try something I'm trying in the try block, and then I've written catch. Here I'm doing DML exception. Only if there is a DML exception in the code, then this will be executed, right? And only if there is an S object exception, then this catch will execute. And if there is nothing of this sort, then a generic exception will occur. Okay, so why we will use, okay, anyhow generic exception will catch the exception, right? But why do you want a DML exception or a subject exception? So this could be some questions from your interviewer, right? So you can explain them. So sometimes, we might have to show a different message when there is a DML exception, and some different message when there is an S object exception, right? And for anything else, we will have some generic message, right? So yeah, it might not have all the times, but every time, most of the time generic exception works. But if interviewer asks you, drill you, just you can go ahead and tell that, if I want to have a different messages for DML, then or if I want to take a different action, right? Not just the message, but here I can write a code to do some action as well, right? Maybe send an email to someone very important, or maybe sending emails if it is DML and a subject exceptions, and just a message on an exceptions. You can create plenty of examples by yourself, if you focus a little bit and try to think out of the box, right? So yeah, give such examples in the interview. And there is a note over here, only one catch block gets executed and the remaining ones are bypassed. So if I get an error, like null pointer exception, then this will not be executed because it's not a DML. This will not be executed. This is not a DML. Directly it will execute this generic exception, right? But if suppose I got a DML exception in this, this is not the code that DML can occur, but I'm giving an example. If DML exception occurs, only this code will be executed, and then it will go out of this blocks. Okay, cool. Next question is, can you write a sample code for a custom exception? Okay, so here is what I want to show you through. Okay, so custom exception is, you can create your own exceptions. Okay, you can throw your own exceptions. Okay, it could be multiple reasons. Okay, like I want to create a complete exception class for my inventory, right? If there is a problem in my inventory, I want to show some some messages which is very specific to every stage of my inventory, right? Inventory warning, or inventory something, or inventory empty, or inventory something else, right? So this is related to my business problem. I want to create multiple exceptions, right? So far what we have discussed is I have done because of that system exceptions, because of my problem in my code. But this is not the problem in your code. You are creating some exceptions, maybe because of your business requirement, right? Like I've given you an example for inventory, right? If inventory is very low, then I will show some message. Okay, and my inventory is very low, I show some message. I would do some action, right, after throwing an error and all those things, and I want to halt the things, right? So that type of things, what you can do is you can create your own exceptions. So how to create it? Try this one. Okay, public class my one exception, or you can write my inventory exception, right? Extends exception. Okay, and I have written two exception classes. If you want, you can write just one as well, and throw new my one exception. You have to write just whatever message you want to write. That's it. Okay, and here catch block, you can write one catch block for exception 1 and another catch block for exception 2 as well. But in this example, here we are getting in catch my one exception, and then here throwing another exception thrown in the inner exception area, right? So this is how we use throw, to create our own generic exceptions or exceptions for my particular business problem or any other problem also. But better to tell an example in an interview, like if I have to business specific errors I want to throw, right? Even though there is no problem in the code itself, right? If there is no problem in the code itself, but I still want to throw some exception based on some my business scenario, then you use the custom exception, which is nothing but the throw. Okay. Next question, can we handle governor limits exception using try catch? Okay. So far we have learned about try catch, right? I said we use try catch not to show then ugly messages to the user, right? Because try catch, if you don't use try catch, it gives you some ugly messages which is displayed on the user page. Okay, whatever user is using, right? So if you ever seen this in any of the website you have used, think that this is low quality code written for this application or website, whatever it is, right? So but graciously handling the exception is nothing but using the try catch. Graciously handling the exception means that is an exception, we are not denying it, but we will not show that ugly message to the user. We will handle it, we will tell that there is a problem, please contact your administrator, right? So what we are doing, instead of showing an ugly message to the user, we are graciously telling that, okay, there is a problem, just contact system administrator, or this is the problem, whatever we are writing in the message, right? So that is nothing but graciously handling the error. But now my question to you is, or as an interviewer, can we handle governor limits exception using try catch? If I have 101 sockle error and if I write try catch throw, will that not throw an error, 101 sockle error, or whatever I have mentioned in my governor limits throw, right? Can we do that? I mean, can we avoid users getting that ugly messages if I hit the governor limit? Okay, so getting the governor limit in your application is nothing but a warning sign. Okay, if you are on a production support and you got a governor limits, it's a big warning sign, right? Because users will not be able to go forward without you solving, and those will not be easy to solve because you have written some bad code throughout the journey, or many developers came in, go out from the project, they have written the code in their own way, no one was there to govern the code, no one was there to review the code, right? And then things happen, people have written sockle in the for loop and so on and so forth, right? And then you joined the company as to support the project. Okay, and then what happens is you got that governor limit in production, right? Governor limit comes, everything stops. Okay, that's a P1. If it is having financial impact, it is a P1 issue, right? So that cannot be fixed easily. You have to analyze the complete code, you have to see where our governor limits are hitting, right? And you have to I would say change the code, not changing the code in the sense, optimize the code so that, code is written in a proper fashion, which is not a one-day job also, right? Not an easy thing. Okay. Yeah, there are some bad ways also to bypass that or whatnot, or some quick fixes also, as in when you get experience into it, you will understand. But now the question is, can we handle that? Can we stop those errors if ever it comes in the production? Answer is no. Okay, you cannot handle governor limits using try catch. Okay, so when we encounter governor limits, code execution halts immediately, and this cannot be handled using exception handling. Okay, so this is how it is. So that's it for today. So as I said, for your references, just go to help.salesforce.com and search whatever you want, whatever references you want, search from these sites first and then refer other sites. Thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you prepare for your Salesforce developer interview and crack your next job. If you have any questions which you want me to include in my videos, maybe you might have encountered in an interview, right? You were not able to give that answer, just type it in the comments. I'll try to add it in the future videos. Or maybe I'm planning to have a separate video series only for I would say scenario based series. Okay, will come up in future, right? So I'll add into those. So post it in the comments below. And if you like this video, make sure to hit and subscribe to my channel right now. That way, you don't miss the Salesforce interview question and answer videos like this one, not just now, but you will always be changing the jobs, right? So you will definitely need interview questions every time. So hit the subscribe button. Thank you.